Before the sun rises over the Midwest, before the coffee is even poured, an entire nation is already at work. Somewhere in Iowa, a tractor's headlights cut through morning fog. Somewhere in California, a dairy farmer is already on her fourth hour of the day. Somewhere in Nebraska, a combine harvester the size of a small house is being fueled up for a 16-hour shift. This is American farming, and it feeds more than 330 million people at home and hundreds of millions more around the world. Over the next 2 hours, you're going to see 100 of the most incredible farms in the United States. Farms so vast you could lose a small country inside their borders. Machines so advanced they practically drive themselves. Technology so far ahead of what most people imagine that it feels like science fiction, except it's real. And it's happening right now, across the American countryside. This is not just about crops and cattle. This is about the people, the machines, and the land that quietly powers an entire civilization. Welcome to 100 incredible American farms. We left the dairy barns of Wisconsin behind. Now we're heading south and west to fields so white they look like snow in July. Orchards that produce nearly the entire world's supply of one nut, and greenhouses that grow food without a single handful of soil. This is where American farming stops looking like the past and starts looking like the future.
In the Mississippi Delta, cotton fields stretch to the horizon in every direction, the plants bursting open in late summer until entire farms look blanketed in snow. A single module builder, a machine that compresses picked cotton into massive rectangular blocks wrapped in yellow plastic, can package tens of thousands of pounds of cotton in a single pass. In West Texas, around the city of Lubbock, one of the largest cotton-growing regions in the world, uses cotton pickers, equipped with onboard moisture and yield sensors, mapping exactly how much cotton comes from every few feet of a field. Data that helps farmers fine-tune next year's planting before this year's harvest is even finished. In Georgia, cotton farmers now use satellite imagery combined with soil sampling to create variable rate fertilizer maps, applying more nutrients only where the soil actually needs it, cutting waste and cost at the same time. American cotton doesn't just clothe the country. It's one of the nation's largest agricultural exports, shipped to textile mills across Asia, Europe, and Latin America.
California's Central Valley grows roughly 80% of the entire world's almonds. During bloom season in February, mile after mile of orchard bursts into white and pink blossoms. A spectacle so vast it requires nearly 2 million beehives, trucked in from across the country, just to pollinate the trees. One almond operation near Fresno uses mechanical tree shakers that grip a trunk and vibrate it for just a few seconds, dropping an entire tree's harvest onto the ground below to be swept and collected by machine, a process that would have taken a crew of workers with hand mallets days to complete a century ago. Because almonds are extremely water-intensive, many California growers have shifted to micro-irrigation and soil moisture monitoring networks, some capable of tracking water stress in individual rows and adjusting valves automatically overnight. Every farm we've seen so far has one thing in common: somewhere behind the scenes, a computer is watching, calculating, and quietly making decisions a human never could, not fast enough, not precisely enough, not across millions of data points at once. Welcome to the most technologically advanced hour in American agriculture, where artificial intelligence, robotics, and satellite data have turned the family farm into something closer to a space mission control center. In Illinois, one large grain operation feeds years of yield data, weather patterns, and soil test results into an AI platform that recommends exactly which hybrid seed variety to plant in each specific section of a field, not the whole farm, but sometimes areas as small as a few acres, based on which genetics have historically performed best in that soil type. In North Dakota, AI models trained on satellite imagery now predict disease outbreaks in wheat fields up to 2 weeks before visible symptoms appear, giving farmers a critical head start on treatment. Some operations use AI-powered weather modeling that's hyperlocal, not just rain expected in the county, but rain expected over this specific field, at this specific hour, helping farmers time spraying and harvesting down to a narrow window that maximizes both effectiveness and crop safety. Modern GPS guidance systems on tractors use a signal correction technology that narrows accuracy from the 10-foot range of consumer GPS down to under an inch. That means 2 passes across a field, days apart, can align perfectly, no overlap, no gaps, no wasted seed or fertilizer. In Kansas, one wheat farm uses auto-steer tractors that free the farmer to monitor multiple screens of data, fuel use, seed placement, soil conditions. While the machine itself handles the actual driving down each row with mechanical precision no human hand could match for 12 straight hours. This inch-level accuracy compounds over a season. Reduced overlap alone can save thousands of dollars in seed and fuel on a single large farm every single year, savings that used to be considered impossible to capture. Beyond the crop monitoring drones from Part 2, some ranches now use drones to herd cattle. Flying low, broadcasting sound, and guiding herds across pastures too large or rugged to cover quickly on horseback or by truck. In California vineyards, technically farms in every legal sense, drones equipped with thermal cameras fly at night to detect irrigation leaks by spotting subtle temperature differences in the soil invisible during the day. Multi-drone swarm systems are now being tested on a handful of experimental farms, where a fleet of smaller drones works in coordination to cover thousands of acres in a single flight session, splitting the workload the way a team of workers would. In California's strawberry fields, robotic harvesters use computer vision to identify ripe berries by color and firmness, gently picking them with mechanical arms at a pace approaching a skilled human worker, a task long considered too delicate for machines. On a lettuce farm in Arizona, autonomous weeding robots roll slowly down each row, using cameras and AI to distinguish crop from weed in real time, mechanically removing weeds without a single drop of herbicide. Robotic apple and citrus pickers, still being refined across test farms in Florida and Washington, use soft robotic grippers designed to mimic the gentleness of a human hand, reducing bruising while working through the night when human labor isn't available at all. In Nebraska, a farm has run entire planting seasons using tractors with no driver in the cab at all. Controlled from a central dashboard, monitored remotely, and programmed to stop instantly if any obstacle, animal, or person crosses their path. Autonomous grain carts now exist that drive themselves alongside a combine during harvest, matching its speed precisely so grain can be unloaded on the move without a second driver needed at all, a job that used to require an entire extra person sitting idle for hours, waiting for the exact right moment. Some dairy operations now use autonomous feed-pushing robots that travel barn aisles around the clock, continuously nudging feed back within reach of the cows, a small, repetitive task that once required someone walking the barn every couple of hours, now handled tirelessly by machine. On many modern operations, every single acre generates data. Soil sensors, yield monitors, drone scans, weather stations all feeding into a central farm management platform that a farmer can review each evening like a financial report. In Iowa, one farm has compiled over 15 years of yield and soil data across its fields, using that history to predict, with growing accuracy, how each specific patch of ground will perform under different weather scenarios before a single seed goes into the ground. The truth is, modern American farming runs on 2 harvests every year, the physical one that fills grain bins, and the digital one that fills a hard drive, and increasingly, the second harvest is what determines how successful the first one will be. We've now seen how artificial intelligence, satellites, and autonomous machines have turned American farms into some of the most data-driven operations on the planet. We've spent the last hour among machines. Now we go somewhere the machines still answer to something older, instinct, weather, and the needs of living animals that can't be programmed or updated with software. This is the world of American livestock, cattle ranches larger than small countries, poultry barns that raise millions of birds a year, and a level of animal care most people have never seen up close. In Texas, one legendary ranch spans well over 800,000 acres. So large it has its own zip code, its own airstrips, and cattle herds numbering in the tens of thousands, managed by ranch hands who still use horses in terrain where trucks simply can't go. In Montana, cattle ranches use rotational grazing, moving herds between fenced pasture sections every few days, allowing grass to recover fully before cattle return, a technique that improves soil health and grass quality year after year. Increasingly, ranchers use GPS ear tags and virtual fencing collars that deliver a mild audio cue or vibration when cattle approach a digital boundary, letting a rancher redraw pasture limits from a laptop instead of building physical fence across miles of rugged land. In Nebraska, a large feedlot finishes tens of thousands of cattle at a time, with nutritionists formulating customized feed rations, a careful balance of corn, hay, and supplements, designed to help each animal reach an ideal weight efficiently while staying healthy. Modern feedlots track individual animal weight gain electronically, with some using automated scales built into water stations so cattle are weighed simply by walking up for a drink, no handling or stress required. The United States produces more beef than any other country in the world, and much of that scale comes from decades of genetic selection focused on both efficiency and animal welfare. Healthier cattle that convert feed into muscle more effectively than their counterparts from just a few decades ago. In Georgia, the largest poultry-producing state in the country, modern chicken houses use automated climate control, adjusting temperature, humidity, and airflow constantly to keep tens of thousands of birds comfortable regardless of the weather outside. Automated feed and water lines run the length of each poultry house, delivering consistent nutrition around the clock, while sensors monitor ammonia levels and air quality to protect both bird and worker health. Some egg-laying operations use conveyor systems that gently carry eggs from nesting areas directly to packaging, reducing handling and breakage while barely disturbing the hens at all. LED lighting systems in modern poultry houses mimic natural daylight cycles, which research has shown improves bird activity, feeding patterns, and overall flock health compared to older static lighting. In Iowa, the nation's top pork-producing state, modern hog barns use climate-controlled housing with automated ventilation systems that respond in real time to temperature and air quality readings. Some operations use RFID ear tags to track individual pigs from birth through market weight, recording feed intake, health treatments, and growth rate for every single animal in a herd of thousands. Automated feeding systems dispense precisely calculated rations per pig, adjusting portions as animals grow, which both improves efficiency and reduces feed waste across an entire barn. Livestock nutritionists, a career most people don't even know exists, work with veterinarians and data scientists to formulate feed rations down to the exact percentage of protein, fiber, and minerals an animal needs at each life stage. Some large operations now use near-infrared feed analyzers that scan grain and feed ingredients in seconds, checking nutrient content before it's ever mixed into a ration, catching inconsistencies that used to only be discovered after lab results came back days later. Large livestock operations often employ full-time veterinary staff or maintain close partnerships with veterinary practices, running vaccination programs, health monitoring, and disease prevention protocols across herds of thousands. Wearable health sensors, similar to the ones seen on dairy cows in Part 1, are now used on some cattle and hog operations to catch early signs of illness, often before any visible symptoms appear, allowing treatment to start earlier and reducing the need for broader antibiotic use across a herd. Telehealth veterinary consultations, once unheard of in agriculture, now let a rancher in a remote part of Montana get real-time guidance from a specialist hundreds of miles away, using nothing more than a smartphone video call. Some cattle operations now capture methane from manure using anaerobic digesters, converting waste into biogas that can generate electricity, turning what was once considered a purely environmental cost into a source of on-farm energy. Managed grazing systems, like the rotational grazing seen in Montana, have been shown to help sequester carbon in the soil, meaning well-managed cattle pastures can actually pull carbon out of the atmosphere rather than only contributing to it. These practices reflect a broader shift across American livestock farming, not away from scale, but toward smarter, more accountable scale from million-acre cattle ranches to poultry houses raising tens of thousands of birds at once, American livestock farming operates at a scale that's difficult to fully picture, and increasingly, it operates with a level of individual animal care that would have been impossible just a generation ago. Next, we step back to look at the bigger picture. The renewable energy, water conservation, and climate-smart practices helping American farms sustain themselves for generations to come. Environmental technology in the country. This is the side of farming most people never think about, where tractors share the horizon with wind turbines, where solar panels grow alongside crops, and where the next generation of farmers is learning to work with a changing climate instead of against it. In Iowa, now one of the top wind energy producing states in the country, many farms host wind turbines directly on their cropland, with towers spaced far enough apart that farming continues almost undisturbed in the fields beneath them. A single modern wind turbine can generate enough electricity to power well over 1,000 homes, and farmers who lease land for turbines often receive steady annual payments, income that doesn't depend on weather, commodity prices, or harvest yields at all. In Texas, some of the largest wind farms in the country sit on cattle ranches, where turbines rise above grazing herds that seem entirely unbothered by the towers spinning quietly overhead. Section 26, Solar Power Meets Agriculture. A growing practice called agrivoltaics places solar panels above farmland at a height that still allows crops or grazing animals underneath. Sheep, in particular, are often used to keep grass trimmed beneath solar arrays, combining livestock and energy production on the same acre. In North Carolina, one farm generates enough solar electricity to power its own irrigation pumps, grain dryers, and barns, dramatically cutting its energy costs while reducing dependence on the regional power grid. Solar-powered water pumps are now common on remote grazing land, replacing diesel generators that once had to be refueled by truck. A small change that saves money and reduces emissions on ranches far from any power line. In California, some farms have moved to soil moisture-based irrigation scheduling that can cut water use significantly compared to fixed watering schedules, since water is only applied precisely when, and where, the crop actually needs it. In Colorado, farmers participate in water-sharing agreements that allow water to move between agricultural and municipal use during drought years, a system designed to keep both farms and nearby cities functioning through dry periods. Cover cropping, planting soil-protecting crops like clover or rye between main growing seasons, has become widespread across the Midwest, helping soil retain moisture, resist erosion, and stay healthier through dry stretches. No-till farming, now practiced across tens of millions of acres in the United States, skips traditional plowing entirely, leaving the previous season's crop residue on the surface to protect soil from erosion and lock in moisture. In Ohio, one farm has practiced no-till and cover cropping for over 15 years, and soil tests show measurable increases in organic matter, a sign of healthier, more resilient soil that holds water better and needs less fertilizer over time. American farms don't just grow food. Increasingly, they generate power, capture carbon, and pioneer some of the most advanced. Some farms now participate in carbon credit programs, where practices like no-till farming and cover cropping earn payments tied to the amount of carbon the soil is estimated to capture, turning environmental stewardship into an additional source of farm income. Plant breeders across American seed companies have developed drought-tolerant corn and soybean varieties bred specifically to maintain yield even during dry stretches, giving farmers more consistent harvests as weather patterns shift. In the Southeast, some farmers have begun trialing heat-tolerant crop varieties and adjusted planting dates in response to longer, hotter summers, quietly reshaping what and when they grow based on decades of shifting climate data. Crop insurance programs backed by detailed weather and soil data now help farmers manage financial risk from increasingly unpredictable weather, giving them the confidence to invest in new practices without risking an entire season's income. In Minnesota, some farms have restored wetlands and native prairie strips along field edges, which research has shown can significantly reduce nutrient runoff into nearby streams and rivers while providing habitat for birds and pollinators. Pollinator-friendly buffer strips, bands of wildflowers planted along field borders, are increasingly common across the Midwest, supporting the bee populations that many crops, including almonds back in Part 2, depend on entirely. Precision fertilizer application, guided by soil sensors and satellite data, has helped many large farms reduce nitrogen runoff, a change that benefits both crop yield and the health of downstream waterways, including the Gulf of Mexico, which has historically struggled with agricultural runoff. Farmers across the country are increasingly diversifying, combining row crops with livestock, energy production, or specialty crops. Spreading financial risk across multiple income sources rather than depending on a single crop's success each year. Regional climate monitoring networks now give farmers hyperlocal frost, drought, and rainfall forecasts, replacing generalized regional forecasts with data specific enough to guide decisions field by field. The farms in this section aren't just growing food. They're quietly building the systems that will let American agriculture keep functioning. We've traveled across nearly every kind of American farm, from 1,000-acre cattle ranches to warehouses growing lettuce under LED light. 90 farms down. 10 to go. But this final chapter isn't just about what exists today. It's about what's already being tested, built, and quietly proven on a handful of American farms right now, the early signs of what farming will look like for the rest of this century. On an experimental research farm in California, AI systems now make near-autonomous decisions across an entire growing season, recommending planting dates, adjusting irrigation in real time, and flagging disease risk, with a human simply reviewing and approving each recommendation rather than calculating it from scratch. Some university-affiliated test farms in the Midwest are piloting AI models that predict market prices weeks in advance by combining weather data, global shipping patterns, and historical trends, helping farmers decide not just how to grow a crop, but when to sell it. Digital twin technology, a complete virtual simulation of a real farm, is being tested on select operations, letting farmers run what-if scenarios, a different seed variety, a delayed planting date, a drought year, on a computer model before ever touching a single acre of real soil. Multi-purpose farm robots, smaller and lighter than a traditional tractor, are being trialed on vegetable farms in California, capable of switching between planting, weeding, and monitoring tasks depending on which attachment is used, all while running on electric power instead of diesel. Robotic pruning systems, still in early testing on grape and fruit tree operations, use computer vision to identify exactly which branches to cut for optimal next season growth, a skill that currently takes human workers years of training to master. Swarm robotics, small, low-cost robots working in coordinated groups rather than one large expensive machine, are being explored as a way to bring automation within reach of smaller family farms that could never afford a single $500,000 autonomous tractor. New greenhouse designs being tested in the Southwest use AI-controlled climate systems that adjust not just for the crop being grown, but for the specific growth stage of that crop that week, fine-tuning light, humidity, and nutrients on a schedule no human team could manage manually. Some next-generation vertical farms are experimenting with AI-optimized light recipes, adjusting the exact color spectrum plants receive hour by hour to maximize flavor, nutrition, and growth speed simultaneously, treating light itself as a precision input, the same way farmers already treat water and fertilizer. Plant scientists are developing the next wave of climate-resilient crop varieties, bred not just for drought tolerance, but for tolerance to heat, flooding, and shifting pest pressures all at once, anticipating conditions that may become more common in the decades ahead. On a research farm in Nebraska, scientists are testing farming systems designed around resilience rather than maximum output alone. Diversified plantings, deeper-rooted cover crops, and soil-building practices meant to keep a farm productive even through an increasingly unpredictable range of weather extremes. These are the final 10 farms on our list. Not because they represent the biggest or the richest operations in the country, but because together, they represent where all 90 farms before them are heading. Behind every piece of technology in this documentary is a person, and increasingly, that person is younger, more tech-fluent, and more scientifically trained than the farmers of previous generations. Agricultural colleges across the country now offer degrees combining traditional farming knowledge with data science, robotics, and environmental engineering, training a generation of farmers who are just as comfortable writing code as they are driving a tractor. Many young farmers today are returning to family land not to farm the way their grandparents did, but to bring exactly the kind of precision technology we've seen throughout this documentary. GPS guidance, AI decision tools, drone monitoring, to operations that have existed for generations. This handoff, from one generation's hard-won experience to the next generation's technological fluency, may be the most important resource in American agriculture's future, more valuable than any single machine or algorithm. Across 2 hours and 100 farms, a few things have stayed constant. Every farm in this documentary, no matter its size or its technology, depends on the same basic elements: healthy soil, available water, and the skill of the people managing it. Machines and algorithms have changed how those elements are managed, but they haven't changed why they matter. Every farm we visited exists within a larger system. Connected to the almond farms that need bees from beekeepers hundreds of miles away, to the grain elevators that store a harvest until market prices are right, to the export terminals that ship American crops to tables around the world. And every farm we visited is run by people making decisions under uncertainty, whether they can't control, markets they can't predict, and a responsibility to feed people that doesn't take a day off, no matter how advanced the technology gets. From a wheat field in the Palouse Hills of Washington to a vertical farm inside a Michigan warehouse, from a Texas ranch larger than some countries to a research farm testing crops that don't exist yet, American agriculture is a story of scale, science, and quiet persistence. It's easy to take food for granted. A loaf of bread. A gallon of milk. A basket of strawberries in the middle of winter. But behind every one of those ordinary things sits an extraordinary chain of soil, water, machinery. The 100 farms in this documentary are just a small sample of the nearly 2 million farms across the United States, each one part of a system that quietly, reliably, feeds a nation of over 330 million people, every single day, regardless of weather, world events, or how little most of us think about where our next meal actually comes from. That's the real story behind every American farm, not just what's grown, but everything, and everyone, it takes to grow it. Thank you for watching.